Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Blabbit. Blabbit, as always, is brought to you by Open Doors, your premier partner in corporate communication and broadcasting. For anyone showing up for the first time, I'm Glenn Ingram. I've been working with training and coaching and helping different people get better expertise in listening so that they can be better at persuasion, aka sales. It's not a four-letter word, it's five. Good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Glenn. It's great to see you guys here this morning. For anyone tuning in for the first time, my name is Paul Geiger. I am a leadership communication coach and a public speaking coach out of New York City. And basically, I work with successful leaders who want to stop merely communicating and start really inspiring. There's a tagline, Lowry.
I love it. I love it.
All right, sir. Welcome back. Welcome back, my friend. Tell everybody who you are and what it is that you do so expertly.
Okay, well, I'm Lowry Olafson. I'm on the West Coast in Canada, just a ferry ride from Vancouver, a little town right on the ocean. And I do audio branding, especially for speakers, actually, Paul, and thought leaders, but also for companies. And I guess the big question everybody asks is, what is audio branding?
Is it like by Menon?
Yeah, exactly. It's when you have an association with a sound with your ba-da-ba-ba-da for McDonald's, that, the audio mnemonics, all of the words, they call them audio logos, they call them a sonic identity. They have the old-fashioned name is jingles, are an example of audio branding, but it's much more sophisticated than that. Now it boils down to any kind of a sound when you turn on your Apple or your IBM computer, your PC, and it goes da-da, you have this connection, a sonic connection with that. And it's a fairly new field, I think, and very, very underutilized field that's super powerful, and people are just beginning to discover it, really.
Well, I think people who are listening don't often think that had to be created. Sometimes it just sounds like that's my computer breathing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so, it's just so natural, right? It just feels like this is what it sounds like, right? But the association, apparently, there's a really great TED Talk by a guy who's an expert in this, a guy named Steve Keller, called Harnessing the Power of Sound. And he says that the sound of that IBM or the PC coming on, that thing is the second most powerful sound next to the cry of a baby in terms of how primal it is and how fundamentally. So that's pretty unreal.
Well, in today's day and world, I always tell business owners, don't worry about investing a lot of money in a logo, because the only one that cares about that is you. But if you look at a TV show near Paul and you hear bump, bump, it's Law and Order time. So why does our brain recognize those things more than visual things?
Well, for one thing, sound reaches the brain faster than visuals, like up to 100 times faster than your eyes do. So it's, a lot of times that's why you're having that feeling. It's not because something you've seen, but it's because of the sound. Sound also has the ability to create emotion, right? So if you're crying in a movie, it's not necessarily, it's probably because the cellos and you're right. That's why you're crying. Or if you're you feel anxious, you're on the screen, a guy's walking across the room, it's no big deal, but the music's going dum da dum dum. It's like, oh, okay, that's why. Or like, they use these high pitched things. Yeah. Things like, and you just get, some shows, speaking of, that's the one Suits, man. I watched that show and I'm just like, yeah, by the time that I had to stop watching it because it was stressful.
Interesting.
Yeah. But so, but it also has, it adds emotion and stuff, but it also builds this connection. It has a power to build connection that's unreal. You think about the affinity that you feel with, just hearing ba-da-da, ba-da, you feel like this kind of warmth towards a company that's basically, trying to kill us with their products. you know what I mean? These are not healthy products. They're not light products, but we associate this kind of light feeling of lightness. There's an emotional, you can attach a feeling to your brand. If it's NBC and it's boom, 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 it's trust, it creates that kind of thing. And for sure, like you said, Glenn, instant recognition. As soon as, da-da-da-dum, Beethoven hasn't changed that one in 250 years because it's been working for him, but
why mess with the copyright?
Exactly.
Oh, wait, it's public domain.
But you know what I mean? It's that, like, that's all you need to hear is just, how it is even when you hear a song, you hear the first three notes and that's, love me do, right?
Yeah. So it's sort of like I can name that mood in two notes. Whatever.
I can name the mood. I can name the brand, or the show, or the whatever it is, right? And then the other nice thing about owning your own brand is that you never pay licensing fees. You're not, it's consistent everywhere you go. So if you're, if you're doing promotional videos, say as a speaker or with a company, if you use some pop tune to start it off, and then you use something different somewhere else, and you got to pay licensing fees, and you have all those kinds of restrictions. But if people phone you, they get their voicemail, and it's like, Blabbit's here for you, whatever it is, then, it's like, okay, I heard that. And then when I saw their video, it's, the Blabbit show starts with, whatever your tagline might be, we're here for you, or, gonna be a good time, whatever it is, right? And they hear that consistently. What happens is it just grows in value year after year after year. McDonald's has not changed. I'm loving it since 2003. Right. Wow. And they apparently paid Justin Timberlake or $6 million to record that song. But over 20 years, that means they actually only paid $350,000 a year. Like it's amortized, right?
Exactly.
Kit Kat hasn't changed their audio brand since 1986.
Well, now let me ask you a question about changing brands just a little bit, or changing. And I want to explore this a little bit. I'm not sure if either of you two guys can remember back in the 70s, but there was a songwriter who actually wrote a jingle for the company we were just discussing, which is McDonald's. And that songwriter was Barry Manilow.
He wrote a lot.
The jingle went, "You deserve a break today, so get up and get away to McDonald's." Now that's a whole, it's not a song, but it is a whole phrase altogether. And is it because McDonald's is so recognizable now that the audio brand becomes shorter to just ba-da-ba-ba-ba? Or is it because our attention spans are so much shorter? Or is it both?
That's a good question. I think, when I write, typically when I write I call them, power songs or audio brands, whatever, I'll write a lot of times a whole chorus, something of the same length of that. And it kind of depends on end use. But for a speaker, say, who's walking on stage, they need 15 seconds of something. So in 15 seconds, you can say a bunch of stuff that adds value to their tagline. It's like, when you in some of those stages, what are you trying to do? You're trying to create energy, pump up the crowd, you walk on, you do that kind of thing. So in that place, you might want a longer song, but always with all of my audio brands can be shortened to, 5 seconds. You can just take the mind switch and just getting started, right? That's one I did recently for somebody, and there's more to it. This guy's is so funny because his company is about retirement planning, And he said, I want it to sound like this total heavy metal thing, head banging thing from the 80s. That's what he was going for. And I said, really? I said, how can that be? And he said, well, he said, the people that are looking at retirement as the beginning of stuff, and they're active and they're like out there, and they're, his tagline is just getting started. And so this is the sense of it, retirement is an adventure. And a lot of these people, like, they were in the 80s, this is what they were dancing to. It's what they relate to. So, it worked super well. Because it's who's your audience, right? Who's your audience? Like if McDonald's had done a thing like that with "You deserve a break today," or with da 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 da, if it was instead was no 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 no, I don't think we'd be relating to it, right? You have to think about who, how do I want people to feel? Well, you certainly don't want them to feel annoyed. You want them to feel lighter. I mean, what I love about that Barry Manilow thing is the message is, give yourself a break, man. You work hard, like you deserve it. It's a really a generous kind of a message to give yourself. I mean, maybe the break shouldn't necessarily be going and having French fries and a hamburger, and maybe it should be a walk in nature or something. You know what I mean? But even just hearing that makes you feel better, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's amazing how different ones trigger different responses in our brains. I mean, you can't help but you're having your heart start getting a little bit faster and getting excited when you hear danger zone. Let's go. We're going to fight.
Yeah.
That's ingrained in our brains because it was associated with Top Gun so well. So isn't it interesting how different people have associated different things, like Paul was saying, with different brands, and that just resonates with us. When we hear it, we're like, I remember where I was, what I'm doing. Kind of like a smell can do that for you.
Very much. And smell is like, these are powerful senses, but they're really not used. I mean, I understand that smell is being used more for that kind of stuff too. But, even without that association, like people use music to create a feeling. So Danger Zone, it's got it's got that feeling, right? And different songs have different feelings. So that's the power of music. What you're doing when you're doing audio branding is you're actually harnessing that to create an association with your brand, and to make people trust you, and to make people feel good about you and feel connected to you and recognize you, right?
Wouldn't it be interesting if we're on to something here, gentlemen? Maybe we should create a whole social media platform that really specifically looks at the sense of smell and how strong that is, because I've heard that your sense of smell is the strongest memory sense. It may not trigger as quickly, but why don't we create a platform and just call it the olfactor, as in olfactory? Like, call it the olfactor, and you just go there and you smell your way down memory lane.
Yeah, maybe it should be the olfactory, and we could create these. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Maybe what? I'm going to let you and Glenn handle that one.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the things that we now take for granted 30 years ago, it's like, are you kidding? That's not going to happen. And obviously it does.
It is. And there are, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff out there on it. People have to go and do the research, but there's ways that that's being used. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, I think that didn't Colonel Sanders used to pump out the smell of their.
Doesn't every place do that? Doesn't Cinnabon?
They do that by accident. You don't want to live next door.
Yeah, exactly.
True story. I was on a committee for sports for my girls in their junior high, and we were, selling concessions, stuff like that. We invested $100 into a popcorn machine, and that smell of popcorn would fill the gymnasium. We double concessions off of purchasing a popcorn machine.
Wow. Yeah. And when you sell your house, you're supposed to bake cookies or put an apple pie in the oven or something. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead, Glenn.
I was just saying, I think along with your thing, maybe instead of name that tune, we need to have name that lyrics. How many notes do you need?
Say again. How many?
Instead of name that tune, how many notes do you need to name that lyric? Because those lyrics are ingrained in our brains so much. Like he said, for KFC, for McDonald's, for whatever. Yeah. I think that's the type of game show, Paul, you should start and be the host of.
Glenn, they already have shows like that. They're out there. You're just not watching them. But wait a minute. Let me ask you this too, because you focus on this 24/7, Lowry, and that is, is more audio branding just instrumental these days rather than vocal? Or is it, I mean, literally, I think it's very, very appealing when you hear the announcer for McDonald's go, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, but
Yeah.
you could play it on almost any instrument now.
Yeah. Well, that's not a lyric, right? The "I'm loving it" part is, but you don't even have to hear that. "I'm loving it." To me, the most powerful part of that brand is the ba-da-ba-ba-da, because it just, it's just so light. It creates a feeling. And I think, yes, to your question, I think you see more of it without lyrics, more of it as, what Paul was kind of talking about, like, a few notes or a few things, but also just sounds, specific sounds. Like, there's such cool stuff happening, with these, really cool things that people are doing that are like really interesting. And I was listening to, audio brands from whatever, maybe it was the top 20 or most famous ones or something. And some of them are so simple. They're just like a Casio keyboard with a really annoying sound. Right? It's distinctive. It's what's distinctive. But because I'm a songwriter, my passion is for having the words, because I see, and for helping people really create more songwriterly taglines, right? Mm-hmm. Because the thing I see on a lot of people's websites, for instance, is one, they don't even have a tagline, or if they do, they've got like so many different things that they haven't really found one thing that really describes them in a couple of words. So I love finding that stuff. And then, the other thing I see people doing is doing kind of mission statements, which are just so not memorable. Like, you can't even begin to remember what people spend a whole day going through a process and bring in experts and they write this thing, and then,
or they're very generic.
Yeah,
they're just very generic and very repetitive. Yes. You've heard it a million times.
Yeah, and the words are adjectives. They're not sensory words. They're not no one can remember them. So, as songwriters, and then the other thing people do that drives me nuts is acronyms, where, you try to remember something by acronyms. Well, I mean, good luck, maybe if it's real short, or if you get, NBC or something like that, after a while, the acronym just becomes the name, right? But nobody remembers what those things stand for. But as a tool to remember things, those things don't work very well. What works great are songs. All you need is love, right? And, John Lennon, he wrote it on one note. So anybody can sing that. Like, anybody in the world can sing da 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 da, right? It's not like he couldn't have written a better melody. Right. I mean,
you haven't heard me sing.
Yeah, I just did. You haven't heard me sing. There's a pitch to your voice. There's the pitch to your voice, Glenn, and you just held it all the way through that. You just weren't paying attention.
We have to give a little bit of a shout out. Lisa David Olson said that Lowry wrote her a song called "So What," and it's about calming anxiety type thoughts. And she had to say that you were fabulously talented.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. And how's our song go? So what if Sherman says that I am not afraid, but I am not afraid to try. So what if I'm not something or other? I can't remember the words, but I had fun writing that song with Lisa.
Well, isn't that interesting? You have just conjured up a memory. I have one of my grandmothers, whenever anyone would say "so," instead of, she would just go "so buttons," as opposed to "so what." So I think you made the better choice.
Well, I think it was Lisa's thing. She had that phrase, "so what," which for her was a trigger, because I was that's like a personal power song that we wrote together for her. And so what I'm doing, so what with trigger, the idea is that a trigger can be as little as that to trigger a whole flood of meaning and a whole change in who you are and how you show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I just find music so powerful. I mean, even something like Somewhere Over, Somewhere, that's like, man, how can you not feel better singing those two notes? Melodies change the way you feel, right? Because if it had gone somewhere over the rainbow, then we'd be, okay, I guess it's not going to work.
Oh, yeah.
I think Lisa meant to say sew buttons on your underwear.
All right. Luckily, I didn't follow her instructions.
Don't you have buttons on your underwear? The back flap? Remember those?
Yes.
The long johns, yes.
Yeah.
So really, when we start, I always look at things of return on investment, what I'm going to get out of what I'm doing. So if someone's going to do a radio commercial, a television commercial, this really is something they should put thought into before they do it, to actually get something that's going to stick, have longevity, instead of just something someone hears and goes in one ear and out the other. What do you recommend for things like that? And kind of what size of businesses do you recommend for that are doing things like that, Lowry?
Well, most of the businesses that I work with aren't doing radio or TV commercials. Right?
Okay.
They don't have the budget for that.
So just like YouTube videos and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, you think about you guys, as typical entrepreneurs, or as, say, a speaker who I work with quite a lot. So speakers are going to use, they're going to use their music when they walk on stage. So that's my, I'm coming on here and I have mind switch and just getting started, and here you are, you take the stage and you've had this energy. People are already, before you've even opened your mouth, they're hearing your message, right? They've already got that earworm. They've just, met it. And then, when you end your performance, you might play the last part again when you walk off. So they hear it one more time. So they're walking out of the room going, just getting started, right? Because it's that simple and that easy. So then it's like, oh, that was really good. I can go check out this guy's website. Well, they get to your website, or maybe even before they went to the keynote, they said, oh, this guy's coming and he's speaking. Let's go to his website, check him out. Well, they watch your sizzle reel. It starts off with mind switch, I'm just getting started. And it's like, oh, okay. We've already heard it. It's already built this kind of credibility. The guy's got a name, he's got his own audio brand. That's cool. Or maybe you don't even notice it, but you've heard it, right? And then the video happens, and maybe the music underneath is playing over those chord changes, and that it's still happening, the pulsing as he speaks, and then it tags with the end of that audio brand. And then maybe they phone you up and they get your voicemail, and it's like, mind switch, hey, sorry, I can't take your call right now, right? So for and then I heard now, I just was told this yesterday, that on Zoom, on your waiting room, you can actually have a video on your waiting room when people are waiting to come in that has, your video. And if you've got your power song, your audio logo as part of that, then people are turned on to that before your session, or you can start your session. So really it's about touch points. Right. One woman I wrote a song with, she speaks on conflict resolution in the workplace. And so she's got a lot of strategies and things that she wants people to learn. And she used to use an acronym. And she has a fun way to teach it. Her program is called Play Nice in the Sandbox, which, is a really nice way to teach conflict resolution, because it seems very doable. It's okay, well, this is a basic rule. I've been doing this all my life. I've seen the value of this, and it's kind of playful and fun for a pretty heavy thing. And she was using acronyms like, P is this and L is this. Well, in the heat of conflict, you cannot remember. Your left brain is completely fried, right? You're not thinking this stuff. So we wrote a song that had all of the strategies in it. It was longer than usual. It ended with her tag along was play nice in the sandbox. Change begins with you, right? And it's like, okay, change begins with you. Okay, well, that's got some, we've got the fun thing and we've got this thing that's empowering. but the song goes, play nice. And she does this. She sends a video after a workshop. She'll send a video, like a slideshow, to the people that participated in it as a way for them to remember the principles that she wants them to remember, right? And they're all in this slideshow. And she sends this to all the people, right? All the time. So they watch it because they're in it. And it's play nice in the sandbox, so you feel like kicking sand. Everybody's got a story. You got to listen to understand. You can choose to lift and make a holy shift. Dig deep and speak your truth. Play nice in the sandbox. Change begins with you. Right? So nice. All the principles there. And, I don't have to think, okay, what did the L stand for again? And so that's another way that, it depends. What I try to do is I try to give people a lot of different options with where they can use their brand. If they've got a short amount of time, then they can use a tiny bit. If they need it to be longer, then, we can add a lot of value and a lot of understanding and depth and meaning to their tagline.
Now, just going back. Go ahead.
Real quick, Paul. I said I'm going to request $1 royalty for this idea if you haven't had it. Is that when you are on LinkedIn in your phone, you can put like a 5-second little audio blast up there. Maybe that's something you can promote for people on their LinkedIn profiles.
You can put a 5-second audio blast on your profile?
Well, you can do it.
They've got the creator thing where that's like 30 seconds.
Okay. I thought the little one on the phone was like 5 or 10.
Oh, I don't know about the phone one.
You can only upload it through the phone. You can't do it through the desktop.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah, thanks, that's Glenn. Right. That's right.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
There is an audio feature where you're supposed to say your name so people can pronounce it. But I added in an extra tagline as well, just because you have enough time. Luckily, I have
Paul a short name. Geiger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See, and there's Paul. Glenn, stop singing.
So listen. When it comes to production,
fans off.
Yeah, when it comes to the production of this, Lowry, do you experiment a lot with various sounds? Do you find that, again, coupling, whether it is an old 1980s Casio keyboard sound or whether it's something completely new, whatever it might be, the Apple MacBook startup that's created layering synthesizers together, or do you find that more of a bare bones sort of singer-songwriter, cafe, guitar, piano sound is the way to go? Or does it have to be audio brand along with lyrics and melody?
Well, the whole thing is kind of the brand, so for some people, that kind of James Taylory thing might be a really good fit because they want to create a certain feeling for their brand, and they might want to come across as being very kind of down to earth and that kind of thing. For the most part, the ones that I do aren't like that. Most people are looking for kind of a distinctive sound, something with some percussion and groove, and something that's energizing, and kind of got like I just did one for a guy that does conflict resolution in the workplace. And his is super fun. Energize your workplace. It's time to have show you how it's done. If you want to rock your business, Mike's here for some serious fun. So it's a vaudeville. He's kind of a vaudeville kind of guy. He wears bunny ears, and he's all about humor in the workplace. But he's not. He said, I don't want people to think that this is fluff. Like there's a reason we want humor in there. It's not just to be stupid. It's because humor brings people closer. It lifts people's spirits and their energy. And like, this is serious. And I said, wow, this sounds like serious fun, Mike. And so like we incorporated that term into his audio brand. So that's, so that one for sure, he doesn't want a singer-songwriter, navel gazing kind of thing. Plus it's fun, but I don't do all the production myself. I usually work on a sketch. Kind of, I'll do a certain amount of the production myself, and then I have producers that I work with that are better at that than me, and I kind of send it to the right guys depending on what the client wants. Sometimes, I sing them sometimes, but a lot of times I'll have other people.
So how long does that process normally take from the initial contact with a client and then coming up with, I'm sure they come in with certain ideas, and I'm sure that you then help them flesh out what the more prominent or the more impactful idea is.
Yeah.
How long does that process take? And I realize it's different for every client you work with, but on average.
Usually, if we're kind of wanting to get it done, we can do it in a couple of weeks. I like to sort of sit with things between, sessions. I'd say 3 weeks, and during that time, we're going to be sending stuff back and forth, and we'll be meeting a couple of times and working. Like we write, I usually write the song with people, or at least, they're in on the process, so I can really listen deeply to what it is that they want and to really hone in on that stuff. And, my job is really just to give them, to help them find their own sound, their own voice, and their own, that kind of stuff. So it wants to, I'd say 3 weeks typically.
Mhm.
Is there a typical range for something like that a company should expect for a price?
Price, well, they kind of start around $29.50. That's kind of for the thought leaders and speakers and stuff like that. And then, for bigger organizations, then where they're having a lot more use, like for instance, a place like a fitness chain, that would be a place where it would make a lot of sense for them to have a song, because they can use that song as part of the workout. Every workout they can have, and people are, when they're going through the playlist of stuff that they're doing in a workout, they can have their song as part of that. And I can turn any song into a 2.5 minute song.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, software that enterprise uses, they have licensing agreements. Do you do the same thing when you're coming up with this creative process, or is it the kind of thing where once it's done, the person who paid you to create it has unlimited use, or is it usually a license?
No, they own it. To me, I don't want to be in the licensing business. I don't want to be policing stuff. I don't want to do that. I want people to have a tool that is like really useful to them. And one of the last thing, I used to do stuff where we did licensing agreements, and I swear they spent more money. I had this one government client that they spent more money on lawyers going through the licensing agreement and deciding if, than they did on what they paid me for the song. It was just like, and all they had was, they could only use it in a certain territory for a certain period of time. And, it was all, and I just thought, what's the best value for people? For me, I like to work. I like writing the songs. I like connecting with people. I like helping people do these things and find their voice and stuff like that. And so if I get paid, up front for that, and then I want them to have the same freedom that I would have with my own songs as a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying the lawyers can take the fun out of any song?
Yeah.
So what happens, or how much time should you expect to devote to an audio brand? Is it like marketing? In other words, if you don't put in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months to begin to see the effect of putting that in place, are you doing it a disservice? Or is it the sort of thing where you come up with an audio brand, but if for whatever reason you decide to pivot your business a little bit, or the business decides to pivot on you, you have to change? Is that something that is taboo? Like once you set it in place, you've really got to stay with it for a while before changing?
Well, I think if it didn't serve you, I would probably just let it go and create one that did, right? Because it's not that expensive. When you think, you think you're going to use this for, 10 years. So what's it costing you? Not very much,
Right.
When you amortize it over a period of time, and the potential for it to keep you top of mind. What's it worth for, people to walk out of a touch point with you, or get off the phone with you, or whatever, and have your song, still going around in their brain, right? I mean, that's how else do you get that? And that's kind of my strength as a songwriter. It's always been writing catchy melodies. People are always saying, "Oh man, I got that song stuck in my head," and I hope that that's, in my case, I like them to be, what I call, nice melodies. I don't want to, do run, 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 do run, run. I don't want to do that to somebody. On the other hand, if you were saying something really valuable, like all you need is love, right? Ba ba da da da, right? And you notice how he's got the simple thing and then the lift. Da ba da da da, this emotional ba da da da. Right? Like, you can do a lot of good. You can just take your tagline, you can just lift people. So anyway, I get that. That was a long answer.
Well, okay, I've got another question, because you made me think, what about companies that, what was the strangest request that you've gotten? In other words, the most unexpected client that you've had? I know you said you work with a lot of speakers who obviously they are performers when they get up to speak or to convey a message in front of an audience. So there's almost like a natural use of that. But in other words, hypothetically, is it a plumber who does that? I know I'm stealing Glenn's example all the time, but
well, a plumber, would make total sense, right?
It would.
Yeah, it would make total sense for a plumber or a realtor or that kind of thing. I think one of the more unusual ones, and I've done 5 of these, are hospice societies, right?
Wow, yes, that is.
And I wrote, though, that was back in the days when I was doing them more as a team building. It was kind of a combination team building branding thing. And so I would go in and I would write the song with, maybe 15 or 20 people that are, people from the board and the staff and maybe family members who had, received the benefits of their service, volunteers, that kind of thing. And so with the hospices, a lot of times they didn't really have a tagline or anything, but like one we created was open hearts and caring hands. And so now all of their t-shirts say open hearts and caring hands. We launched the song with an 80 voice children's choir, so all their parents came out to this big event, and it was big, a fundraiser. They use that, they can use that. It's a whole song, that one, so it can be longer. But it explains, it just kind of builds this feeling around there. But they do the same thing, a slideshow where they might have, spring, summer, fall, and winter. The slideshow can change, and they'll have different pictures of the staff and the grounds and the flowers and different things. And then it just becomes an excuse to play the song again. And so, when they think of open hearts and caring hands, it's like, well, that's where I want my loved one to go. Mm-hmm. Right? I right away feel good about these guys. I feel cared for with that song, right? So, so a lot of nonprofits like hospitals that are doing any kind of foundation that are doing fundraising, where they want to create more trust and more buy-in from the public, it becomes an opportunity, and it always astonishes me when I talk. There's this one hospital foundation here, not far from where I am, and they have this great tagline. And it would be so great if it had a melody. It would just be fantastic. And I've talked to the whatever he is, the CEO, and they just don't get it. We're not really into jingles, and they've spent a fortune on their visual brand and on this stuff. They've spent a fortune, right? And they don't, and they're missing this thing. Like, you could just like. How many times a day are you on hold for a hospital that the foundation couldn't be getting this message? Like, people leaving there with this singing, giving changes everything.
Yeah. Right? Isn't that interesting? Shouldn't it be a business that has less of the usual association with music and with things creative, something that's more standard and more right brain rather than left brain, or left brain rather than right brain? Isn't that always really the best way to weave in something like that? I wish everybody understood that.
Well, we're artists and creative people and stuff. And so, of course, we We understand that, but there's a lot of resistance, and for me, a lot of it's really just about educating people, because I mean, this one franchise I talked to about it. Every single franchise uses a different piece of music, and again, they've spent a fortune on their videos and on their everything's color coordinated, like down to the finest detail in their offices and in their web design. All their visual stuff is like off the charts, and then they get this music, and it's different from every touch point you go to. And I talked to them, and I even wrote them something, and they just, oh well, we're not really into that. It's like, okay,
obviously.
Yeah.
Anyone that's listening to that needs to rewind for a minute and listen to that, because that's my biggest irritating point. When I meet a business owner, no matter what they do, and across different platforms, they don't have the same brand, the same message, the same narrative.
Yeah.
It really becomes disassociated, and it's not as easy for people just when they see something like, that's that person, that's that company.
Yeah.
Treat people like a third grader, make it simple, and they will remember you.
Yeah. Well, and if it's really good, I mean, songs do treat people like a third grader. All you need is love. Like, that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to say, John Lennon did not say, what's really required here is greater understanding, empathy, and compassion, throughout the planet, right? Like, how memorable would that be? Mm-mm. Like, I don't think of songwriting as dumbing it down. I think it as almost like alchemy, where you reduce it to its essence.
You do the KISS method. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's as interesting because I literally just reached out to a friend of mine, an neurologist, and said, have you thought about doing this? He goes, yeah, we just got it taken care of. I do think it's something that's very valuable just to have that association, things like that. What do you see coming next in the future with this, as far as association and branding with music, other than large companies down to mid-sized and small-sized companies?
Well, I mean, it's growing, it was in the old days. I mean, I think people think of jingles as being kind of old fashioned and a bit hokey and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they can all remember them. They still remember, Oscar Mayer Wieners, or, whatever, like they remember them all. And, I was having this conversation with a woman named Lisa Rothstein, and she wrote the one for Hanes underwear, Get Your Hanes On. I don't know if you know that one, but anyway, she said, I get that all the time where people say, they just kind of blow it off, but they can't forget them. Right. So I think that it's kind of more sophisticated now. Not everybody, I'm still kind of, what I do is a really small piece of it, because I'm a songwriter, and I like songs. I think songs are the things, when you combine lyrics with that, you've got a really powerful, way to get a message across, or to add value to not just a sound, because you got the feeling, you get all that stuff anyway that you get from just a straight mnemonic, they call them, just the sound. But, adding the lyric and just the right words, to me is, I love that. So I think, but I do see what's different for me is that now, for the little guys, for the smaller companies, for the entrepreneurs, for this, the thought leaders and authors and creators and stuff, now this is really something that is, they have a lot of ways to get free airplay, right? That they didn't used to be able to get. And so this makes sense now. It used to be only like, how are you going to get out there? You had to pay for radio ads, for TV ads. Well, of course, that's not in the scope of most of us. But nowadays, there's just so many touch points, and the more touch points you find, I mean, one woman is using she does these meditation tapes, and as a way to, with her work, and she's getting, giving people a relaxation thing. Well, it starts with her song, ends with her song.
Yeah.
Well, I think Lowry's onto something, because if you remember the movie Demolition Man in 2032, what was going to be playing on the radio? Old jingles.
Because they're memorable. Now, Lowry, do you work with larger agencies? It would seem to me that most people who don't really stop to think about where audio branding comes from just probably lump it all together and go, well, some agency came up with that. But it really comes down to individuals like yourself who are doing that type of work. Do you find that the process takes longer by committee when you're working with an agency than it does when you're working directly with the business owner or the CEO or the C-suite member?
Well, yeah, there's just kind of more places where it can fall through, you know. I just did one for a nonprofit, and we went through the whole process and we got all approvals and stuff like that, and then we got to the final stage with it, and then the CEO said, "I don't like it. We're not doing it." And but you've approved this all the way along. Like, how did that happen? Kind of thing. And so, everybody's like, all of the people that have been involved have loved and created this thing and had input into it and really feel like this thing really represents them and does that. It can go sideways, but, for me, I like working with individuals a lot, because what I do really is deep listening. Right. I'm really asking these guys, like, it's really me really paying attention to who they are and really getting a sense of them as people. And then I'm kind of almost like a cheerleader for them and an advocate for them, and helping them find that sound and that voice and stuff like that. Doing stuff. And what I do find is that it's important that the more people are involved in the whole process all the way up, then the more it's going to be what they want. Because, it's kind of like when a new Joni Mitchell album came out. I'm a huge Joni Mitchell fan, right? But every time she came out with a new album, I mean, she came out with Blue, I didn't like it. She came out with, For the Rose, I didn't like it. Well, I love those songs. Now, I mean, I adore that stuff. And it took a while, for me to kind of get to speed with her, right? But if I'd been there when she was writing the songs, I would have just had buy-in right from the beginning, or if I've been writing, you know what I mean, when we're doing that. So that, to me, that's the danger of showing up with stuff and then, showcasing it to a committee who don't have, they got no skin in the game. They don't understand why the choices have been made. I mean, I would do the same thing when I'm recording, songs for an album, and I'd come home and I'd bring it home and play it for my girlfriend or something, or my wife or something. And they'd say, I don't know, it's really, why'd you do that? I don't, like, they don't get it, because it's like, yeah, but, and then after a while they'd love it. But when new stuff comes in and we haven't been part of the process, sometimes we're not inside. On the other hand, I suppose that could be good, because, listeners have to go through the same thing.
Well, true. But often and I tell this to people all the time, especially when it comes to public speaking, we know when we do or we don't like something, but we don't often know why. And sometimes it's the expertise that gets to the why that really determines whether something will be successful or not. It's very easy to say, nah, I don't think so, as opposed to saying, but this should work for these 6 different reasons.
Yeah.
And we've bolstered this whole idea with these various reasons to make this work, and it has legs, and I think it can withstand an initial, I'm just not familiar with it, I don't know, I don't really like it. Yeah. So you run into that as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I write with people, it's their song, so I can't tell them. I'm not going to make a decision and railroad over them and say, no, you have to keep this line. It's a good line. I'll say, the reason I like this line better than that line. I just had a client do this last night. She just sent me an idea for a tagline, and the last line was, what was it? She's sort of a get shit done kind of a person. And it was lean in, get real, start anything. I think that was what she was suggesting. And I had a simpler line. I just wanted her tagline to be get real, right? Because she's like, to me, it's so simple, and it's what she's about. And getting real is an invitation. It's also about, like, tell the truth. It's about be who you really are. And so then, adding this thing, start anything. It's like, well, it's start anything. Like, anybody can start anything. Like, finishing is the hard part. I mean, I understand where you're going. Starting is, starting is often the hard part, right? But start anything, no. start something, or start, maybe, but don't start anything. Like, that's bad advice, right? So for me, I'm going to say that to the client, and I did. I said, I don't think that that's a good choice for you, because I don't think that's your message. I don't think you want people to go out and just start anything and be completely, all over the place, right? So those are the kinds of things that's the kind of feedback I give people, so they can see, why that wouldn't be a good choice. I don't make the choice for them.
Right.
Well,
Hey,
don't both
Glenn.
of you really think? Go ahead.
No,
I was going
go
to ask
ahead.
both of you. Don't you think it's really something that you try and help people in both of your professions to help them say more with less?
Absolutely.
Totally.
Absolutely. Very, very important. I was just going to bring up, Glenn, which guest on Blabbit said that there's a difference between motivation and discipline, and it kind of ties into what Lowry's talking about. Was that Ben? Was it Ben Stein who talked about,
I don't know what I had for
lacking
lunch
the
yesterday,
memory.
and you're asking me that?
And in other words, he said, and this ties into what you were saying about the statement for the woman who likes to get stuff done, is yes, you want people to be motivated, but it's important. It's a whole other thing to be disciplined enough to finish. So you're trying to encapsulate both of those things into one phrase. And obviously, there is still room for explanation, but isn't that what the rest of your talk, the rest of your training, the rest of your workshop is all about?
Yeah. I mean, there's sort of different things that you can do with your tagline, right? You can instruct and inspire people with it. You can give them a sense of who you are. You can I don't know, there's a couple more things I can't think of, but there's like a bunch of different ways that you can have that tagline work for you, but they're all just a starting point. And I think the most important thing is that they give them a sense of you, right? So that mind switch, I'm just getting started, is like, what I said to Scott when we created this thing and he wants this thing, I said, well, then you have to show up like this when you walk on stage. Then it's kind of like, mind switch, I'm just getting started. Like, this is who you have to be walking on stage. So you can't walk on and say, okay, hello, how do you like me so far? Right? It's like, this is that's what I really want to do, is I want to reflect people's personalities and who they are as people.
Yeah.
And so for me, I just, like, when I got that line, get real, for this woman, I just thought, this is so her.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just, she's just like, she just tells it like it is. I love it. Right.
I just thought of an audio brand that we're all very familiar with. How about that funky slap bass of the Seinfeld shows?
Right.
When you hear that, and that was it.
Yeah.
Not a word.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No. It's
Awesome. Well, Lowry, it's been great having you on here again. And as we blinked our eyes, 55 minutes has gone by. So if anyone would want to reach out there and contact you, Lowry, what's the best way to do so?
Powersongs.ca is my website. There's a scheduling thing to book a free discovery call with me. If people want to learn more, then they can do that. Or Lowry at LOWRY at powersongs.ca. You can email me directly. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. This has been a great conversation. We appreciate having you back again.
Thanks. So fun to hang out with you guys.
Yeah. Good to see you, Lowry. Have a great holiday. And that goes for everyone watching this and watching the replay. Wish everyone a very safe holiday. And we'll be back soon. Very, very soon. All right. Keep singing.
And watch out for that tryptophan.
See you next